pronounce it? Maj?
Yeah.
Maj?
Yeah.
Did you ever watch The Wire, the TV show?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite shows.
I love that show.
Yeah.
Because I've never been in the projects, and it was so gritty and real.
They did a great job of depicting, because Baltimore and Philly are very similar. Row homes, the demographic, not too far from each other. So they got that very right. Very right.
And these kids on the street were young.
Yeah.
And it's like their best option.
It's not their best option. It's society in certain demographics will give you, there's A through Z. And they'll say, here are your 4 options, A, B, C, D. Leaving out E through Z, right? And so,
they meaning society, friends, who we're growing up with.
Society, television, media, I mean, they promote that. They say, like, okay, so for example, if you say, I want to sell drugs, right? Society's targeted to a young person that says, I should just buy weed and sell it. And I'm not mad at that it's wrong. It's a commerce, it's an exchange. But they won't say, they won't condition that demographic to say, cannabis should not be criminalized, and I should not have to pay licensing fees to the state to have a cannabis dispensary. I should be able to grow cannabis. That's, horticulture.
Plant.
I should be able to grow this. I should be able to cure it. I should be able to package it, and I should be able to sell it, right? So they're not packaging, I'm selling drugs that way. In reverse, when I say I want to get in the pharmaceutical industry, I'm still saying I want to be a drug dealer.
But they're saying you got to go through 8 years of college and get licensed, and you have to do what I do, or I'll pull your license.
Yeah. And after a certain amount of money, we are exempt from any of the backlash from this product. So on the street, if I sold Kensington and Frankfurt in Philadelphia is
this is detailed.
It's the largest open air drug market in America.
Wow.
You ever see it on those documentaries? There's people like nodding over with the heroin. There's a side effect to the drugs that they take, right? There's a side effect to every drug. But the dealer that gets caught, and let's say there's a bad batch and people die, or they have whatever side effects go along with it, that person, if they can be tied to that bad batch, they're going to be prosecuted for that. But you make trillions of dollars or billions of dollars, and your product, I don't know, gives people myocarditis, you have exemption. So it's marketed differently to different demographics. My job is to make sure that my demographic, recognizes, not saying that I want people to sell products that give people myocarditis, but I want them to recognize that there's other ways of bringing that type of commerce and free market enterprise to your demographic that can be highly, profitable without the same risk. I potentially can go to jail or I can get robbed.
On another, I've known a lot of people from Asia, Persia, and their families. Like, you have 2 options: be a doctor or be a lawyer.
Yep.
And if you deviate from that, you're not part of the family.
Yep.
So it's very similar. They only gave them A and B, and they're like, what if I want to be an artist? What if I want to be an Asian rapper?
Right.
They're like, that's not on the menu, brother.
It's not on the menu until their parents see how much money they can make being the Asian artist, right? Then they go, we always knew you could do it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying that whatever it is, we just have to figure out the conditioning for most young Americans should be, whatever you're going to do, you should figure out a way to turn it into a free market enterprise, right? So when I sold weed and DVDs. So when I was selling DVDs, I would run into, because I sold them on a train. This is public record. That's the one conviction I have on my jacket, right, for selling DVDs. What people didn't know was I made a whole page, an Instagram page, and it was called DVDs and Trees. And so by me seeing, okay, guys will buy movies on the train, right? This is when DVDs were a thing.
Right.
If they were with somebody that may be going home, they want to watch this movie, a lot of people smoke weed. So I would sell people 3 DVDs for $10 and an eighth of weed for $40, so you can get an eighth and 3 movies for $50.
You bundled.
100%. 100%. That's in the corporate world, I just upsold you.
Yeah.
That's all. And so I learned that I did have a job before too. I worked at Foot Locker. And when you go to Foot Locker, they're always trying to sell you like
shoestrings,
spray free socks. That's the upsell. And they call it multiples. So I would figure out ways that I could sell multiples. So for example, the benefit for a guy that's going out and they're about to go to the movies with his girlfriend or his lady friend, if you're going to the movies, it's going to be $100. I can give you the weed and the movies for $50 and you already have food in your house. So this was the thought process, and it seems like a very simple thing.
Business is not simple.
No.
Those things we just talked about, upsells, downsells, bundles.
Yep.
These are pretty heavy marketing
Yep.
concepts. I published my first website in 96. So I learned upsells and downsells and traffic and funnels. And generally I talk to business owners like, I don't know even how to get on Google.
Right.
I don't get on a map. And these are just, dry cleaners and things
Right.
I didn't introduce you. Maj Toure, he's a rapper.
Yeah.
You're a social activist.
Yeah.
You're Philly native.
Yep.
One of my closest friends, Philly, and I'm from Texas. So
Yeah.
we only disagree one day a year.
Eagles.
when they play
Eagles
each other.
all day.
Other than that, we're buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how'd you get into rap music? You're selling DVDs, your DVDs or movie DVDs?
So both. Hip hop is the most powerful form of expression in the world. I mean, that's.
I don't argue that at all.
Yeah, it's just
they had messaging there on the radio,
Yeah.
in the streets that you couldn't say or you get shot.
That's why it got co-opted and turned into that. Corporate America got involved in that. Those same suits that bought into that also owned, Prison Stop. So they
Wow.
turned it into, that was their funnel.
I didn't know this.
We're going to turn this in from, hip-hop originally was about messages. Whether it wasn't even called gangster rap, it was called reality rap.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it was that part or that section, because it's it's a holistic approach. Some guys were talking about love. Some guys were talking about, a corrupt system. Some guys were talking about, flashy, their affluence that they got from street life. It was more of a lane for every story to
But they
be
were
told.
speaking to each other.
Correct. Or just speaking to the world.
Right.
What started to happen was it became a very socially powerful commentary. And then there's marketing behind it. You get Run DMC making a song called My Adidas, because that was the thing that was being worn at the time. They never got a check from Adidas, ever.
Wow.
And so product was being moved. And so other social commentary was being made of NWA, fuck the police. And that conversation about F the police led into a conversation about the social problems and the social ills. And then it started becoming very, very powerful.
And profitable. When NWA broke.
So we can't have this community potentially talking about social issues and profiting off of it themselves. So people came in, started giving them these horrible deals, because record labels are like banks. They give you the startup capital. And
But you understand that they gave horrible deals to all the artists, right? I mean, they were kind of pariahs
yes.
back in the 70s and 80s.
Yes and no. Yes and no. There were certain people that rock and roll and pop deals were vastly more respectful. Not that those guys got exactly what they
Right.
deserved.
Yeah, right.
I personally believe if you didn't make the product and you don't know anything about the product, you're kind of a culture vulture. Like now, if there was, hey, you have this great idea, let's figure out a fair and balanced approach to me putting up the money and you being the talent. But that's not how it was initially structured. And hip hop artists got even the lowest of the low deal.
Of the bad deals.
Of the
they
bad
got the
deals.
worst
Like you get the
deals.
super bad deal of the bad deals.
But you know all about distribution. I mean, Amazon today will kick vendors off for no reason.
Yeah.
I have buddies with $10,000 a day businesses, and they just get turned off.
Yeah.
Because Amazon owns the customer.
Right.
They owns the distribution network. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of vendors. So it's not an unusual thing for someone that owns the distribution platform, which is so nice to be where we are now.
Yeah.
We can go right to the consumer.
Yeah.
With this podcast, with the books, we can go right to the consumer. But in the 70s and 80s, it's hard to get in record stores. How
Right.
do you do that?
You
You
do-
almost have to make a deal with the devil.
Not really. You do what, Barry Gordy did. You do, and that's a, 60s, 70s, record label out of Detroit. You do what Fast Forward, you do what Master P did. These guys were not, you do what Phil Knight did with Nike. He worked for Asics first and then came up with this thing. And yes, Phil Knight sold Nikes out of the trunk of his car initially.
Man, that's hustle.
You know what I'm saying? And so, now, this does not mean that I'm saying that everyone that, Jeff Bezos is absolutely evil. No, it's just he made a thing.
You made a thing.
And if you want to participate in this thing, it's still his thing. I'm saying that now, especially with the advent of technology, you can get direct to consumer. You can make millions of dollars from your phone don't get extra fancy and then get your own server, get your own site.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Fully encrypt everything. Now you're your own island. And I think that more people, now is it harder up front? Yes. Our very first piece of merch at Black Guns Matter, I literally had one shirt that said Black Guns Matter. I took a picture on the subway, because everybody in Philly knew me from selling stuff on the trains, right? There was one shirt, and at the time I think I might have been on like Big Cartel or some website. I took pre-orders for the one shirt, and no one knew that I only had one shirt, but it was that one shirt. And then I sold a bunch of them, put all of the money into the actual merch, did that 2 or 3 times, and that was the flip. So it's no different if somebody fronts me a pound of weed and I break it all down to eighths. All right, I'm going to pay my guy that gave me the pound back first. Even if I still have the product, my money's going to come on the back end.
Right.
Your money always come last, you know? I got Maggie's.
If you're the owner.
If you're the owner, especially if somebody fronts you, because you're an owner-operator in the beginning. If somebody fronts you. Now, I'm not telling somebody, hey, if somebody gives you, right now I'm looking forward to shop a television show based on all of this work that I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I know that initially I'm going to have probably a horrible deal. I know that.
Or at least an offer of a horrible deal.
Offer of a horrible deal. They're never going to start you right at, you know what, we absolutely value you, and we're going to pay
$10 million.
Exactly what you
Even if we don't make any money, here's $10 million.
Right?
You're not going to get that.
There's a book by 50 Cent's newest book. I think it's called How to Hustle Smarter and Harder or something like that. And even him, as being the second largest hip-hop selling artist of all time, it's Eminem, which is on his team, and him. When he went into the TV industry, it was still like, he was getting $17,000 per episode, which to the general public might seem like a lot. But for a guy that sold 20, however many million records, he still didn't get a great contract. But he had a vision. So he sacrificed that upfront, his own personal money, to build it into something else with the network stars. Now, I'm saying that to say, I'm not telling anybody that, like, if you got like $8, bro, and you have an opportunity, and it might not be a whole bunch of money, opportunity isn't always tied to a paycheck. It could be tied to the opportunity. So I know I'll probably holler at Fox or some independent media, stuff like that. They may say, hey, you know, we can only give you $100,000, but we'll put $500,000 into the show. And I'll say, cool, give me $50,000, and I'll leverage other things on my own. My point in saying that is,
well, if you get a piece of the back end, you get a piece of the ownership, you know, and if you can actually execute that contract,
or I say,
you're betting on yourself,
or I say, don't pay me any money, put it into the show, I retain the rights, let's renegotiate after the one season.
Love that.
Some of those different things. My point in saying that is, these are lessons that when we talk about, you know, selling drugs being easy, it's not really. The money after a while is just a little bit better, and there's beneficial lessons. That's what makes it better. Those beneficial lessons that are transferable and scalable to different businesses. You know what I'm saying?
But these days, anybody listening, which is all over the world, India, you're saying find a business.
Yeah.
But I think what I heard here is a lesson for someone that doesn't. Maybe they do have $8 in their pocket.
Yeah.
That's it. Mm-hmm. Is if you're going to negotiate getting paid up front with security, you're going to get a minimum wage.
100%.
And if you can work for the equity on the back end, you might end up really wealthy.
Man, listen, 50 Cent bought into this company called Vitamin Water years ago. I think it might have been early 2000s, whatever it was. He bought into this company because he wanted to. He talks about it in his book too. When I drove down here, we took the RV out and we drove down. I was re-listening to it again on audiobook, so it's fresh in my brain. He talked about he wanted to. At the time, every hip hop artist was selling a liquor, and he was like, "I want to sell water." So he got with this company called Glacio that had vitamin water. They worked the deal. They did an equity deal, and he starts promoting. Boom, boom, boom. They promote. He didn't take a whole bunch of money, right? He didn't take a whole bunch of money, but now, because of his fame, they're gobbling up market share. Then the mighty Coca-Cola, who owns Gatorade, because it's a vitamin drink, it's an energy drink.
Right.
The mighty Coca-Cola shows up and says, now, allegedly, 50 Cent had 10% equity. He has an NDA, so we couldn't.
We don't know.
Yeah,
but it's a lot of equity.
Coca-Cola bought vitamin water for $4.1 billion in the early 2000s.
Wow.
Now, technically, he can't say it, but he's fine with what his situation was.
Does that equity cash out when they bought it, or he still has the same equity?
I don't know, because of the NDA.
But well, you know, that's how Ryan Reynolds, The Rock. These guys are leveraging a little bit of fame, and not a little bit. These are big movie stars, but into telephone company, into liquor company.
You know, Ryan Reynolds is now officially a billionaire.
Yeah, with a B.
with a B.
And don't get me wrong, he's charismatic, he's talented, all
The
that
dude's-
stuff.
He's gorgeous too. This dude is
and talented.
gorgeous. Yeah.
But he did what most actors don't do and said, I don't want to keep getting a paycheck.
Yeah.
I want to own equity.
Yeah.
If you want my pretty face,
Yeah.
and I'm very pretty,
Yeah.
then I will take equity.
100%.
Oh, smart guy.
These are lessons that come with pain. The pain of being an actor, maybe not, going through all of these pains, and I got the check, but now I don't know when I'm gonna get the next gig. Then hitting the lotto with, Deadpool.
Right.
But no one talks about he was also Green Lantern.
He also helped produce that movie.
Right.
And I think he bought the rights. I mean, these people,
You
like
feel
even
what I'm
Tom
saying?
Cruise, like in Mission Impossible.
Yes.
He's like, I'm going to go buy the rights to this old TV show. I don't know if it was all his wealth or not, but look at that. It's 5 movies in, and he's still a superstar.
And he does his own stunts and all these other different things. And the point here is, these lessons for me came from outside selling stuff. And I'm not saying you have to sell anything that puts your freedom at jeopardy.
Right. There's
You
a
know,
lot of options.
You
in the
can
world.
sell anything. I remember my mother used to tell me about this thing when she was younger called pet rocks.
All right, I remember that rock.
Was like-
Somebody marketed a rock.
Somebody sold people rocks, and
It's
so
a story.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's like paintings. Paintings, in anybody's house has a painting. I don't know if we have real paintings, is they have a story behind how they got it.
Yeah.
And that story is what makes that
Yep.
painting so valuable. The Banksy stuff.
Yep.
There's a story behind it.
Yep.
And so the narrative made the rock interesting.
Yep.
I took a class about story brand, and he is all about how to market. So if you can tell a better story, you can sell a rock,
Yeah.
or you can't give it away.
the story of Black Guns Matter.
Tell me about that. I know we're wrapping up on time,
No.
but I want to hear Black Guns Matter.
Yeah.
I'm a handwriting expert. You print mostly,
Yeah.
and there's just a couple of good things I want to mention.
Yeah.
Independent, and you're not an egomaniac.
Yeah.
Like when I read your bio, I'm like, this guy's badass. Like you're humble and
Yeah.
you're cool and you're honest and transparent, fiercely independent.
Yeah.
Is that also in your relationships? You just want space, or do you like to have that nurturing female companionship?
I like companionship, but I like the person to have their own person.
and
like
have
their own.
I do my thing, you do your thing, come
Yeah.
together and come.
Yeah. I never want to. I'm not a tyrant. I'm a tyrant to myself.
You're hard on yourself.
Yeah. My inner voice is disgusting.
I wrote a book about that.
Yeah.
I'll give this to you. It's
Yeah.
literally about how to control your inner voice and turn those negative thoughts into questions.
Now they're not negative. They're aggressive.
Interesting.
It's like sometimes that's why I don't smoke weed as much anymore. That inner voice will tell me things like, "Bro, you don't got $10 million in cash or Bitcoin yet. You're a loser. You're a loser." Like that, and it can be motivating when I come down and have that moment of clarity.
Right.
But I'm still calling myself a loser at that moment.
And that's not healthy.
It's not a really healthy
You're like,
thing.
I'm going to put that voice over there.
Now, when I'm in the gym and I'm sober, when I'm just working out, I got some kinetic in my system or some pre-workout or whatever. The challenges, my inner voice is it's David Goggins, C.T. Fletcher in my head, going like, you got to finish, and it'll be aggressive. I'll challenge myself in very, very dark ways. If you don't finish this last rep, everything that you know and love dies.
Damn, you are hard on yourself.
It's wild.
People are motivated by two things: moving toward pleasure or away from pain.
Yeah.
And you're highly motivated away from pain. And most people are, but they're not willing to put themselves in pain, so they let the world do it for them,
Pain is
and then they suffer.
100% growth. And so Black Guns Matter was the pain of losing friends, the pain of this guy's getting arrested for simple possession of a firearm, not because he robbed somebody, tried to shoot somebody. And I don't want my friends to consistently keep getting lost to a system. I have answers to this. Let me talk about, from a Second Amendment perspective, how we can get my demographic where I live, the neighborhoods that feel like my neighborhoods all around the country. How can we get these guys to be more civically involved, politically educated, and overturn some of these clearly unconstitutional rules or mandates or statutes as it relates to the Second Amendment? And I mean, everybody in my hood got guns. If we put the education and the political power behind it by informing and empowering that community, we can do that. We started in 2016 and we said we are going to make the black community be the newest, largest gun buying demographic. We did that. That happened in 2019.
Registered gun owners that are educated.
Safe and responsible. I try
Got
not
it.
to say registered
Okay.
because it's not
Because you don't necessarily want to in their business.
Yeah.
But you're definitely not wanting a shootout. You're saying if we get educated people around here, we'll be safer as a community.
And the data's clear. Dr. John Lott wrote a great book called More Guns, Less Crime, where he did a study over all of these different metrics over however many decades. More safe and responsible firearms owners means safer communities.
You know why? Because people are motivated in pain.
Yep.
If they're like, that motherfucker's got a gun.
Yeah.
I'm going to behave.
If I'm the weirdo that's trying, like Rapey McNapey, trying to rape women, and there's an 80% chance that she's gonna like blow you to next week, like in a bad way, not the good way, right? If she's gonna absolutely shoot me, maybe I'm not attempting to rape women in this area. You know, rapes are very low in Texas.
Yeah, I live in Texas.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I own firearms.
You feel me?
And I'm in a restaurant. I'm like, somebody's got 3
There's
guns.
8
And no
guns
one's
in
going to
it.
walk in
Yeah.
here and rob this restaurant.
It's not happening.
I feel that way. There was a church that somebody stand up in a church.
The parishioners looked that dude up immediately.
I mean, he still got somebody, but he didn't get 80.
Right.
Yeah.
And so these are the stories behind these experiences that transition into, and the stories go into, you know, this mom, this grandmom, and the daughter all never touched a firearm before in their life. They come to a Black Guns Matter class. So we educate 3 generations of women in a rough neighborhood
To
and
be
now to be
self-sufficient.
empowered and safe and responsible firearms owners. We're taking these communities that do not feel like they're a part of the American dream,
Wow.
and they're going, nah, this is for me now. The American dream is mine as well. I don't care what, you know, extreme propaganda say. Well, they didn't mean that for you. I don't care what they meant. This is mine. I have the right to exist in this space and have the means to defend myself. That's an absolutely amazing story.
Dude, I love your story. And when I read Black Guns Matter, it's so controversial.
Yeah.
And people probably don't like it when they hear it, or they think that your agenda is something really different than just a kind guy go, hey man, I'm trying to protect my people and give them opportunity.
Yeah.
The messaging is so clear now that I've spoken with you versus like, I want to shoot everybody up.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. And it's also a pun on White Lives Matter, which is also great too.
It's a
Black Lives
beautiful
Matter.
in between, and it creates such these open dialogues. Most times, even if the person feels like, is this guy trying to make fun of something, or is he? Usually they'll ask. They'll go, even with my white guys that wear the Black Guns Matter merch, black dudes will be like, yo, either they'll go, yo, that's true, bro, or they'll go, yo, what does that mean? And then they have that dialogue, and they're like, yo, it's a firearms training organization
Nice.
called that. So we break those barriers. They're trying to create the Tower of Babel amongst Americans. Instead of us, the opposition to freedom.
Right.
Instead of us communicating with each other, they want us babbling at each other. And so these phrases, most effective devil in America, this, that, and the third, in the war on masculinity, in the war on femininity, these are conversation starters that gets us outside of these, I'm over here and this person's the other, the they.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which creates internal value. You've been delightful, my friend.
Thank you.
Maj, you're fantastic.
Well, I am quite a delight.
And your inner voice needs to remind you of that every day.
Right.
I am an inner delight.
Right, I am an inner delight. Right.
How delightful am I today?
Right. 100%.
Plug. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How can we get, this is not filled out
Yeah.
yet, Black Guns Matter, how
Yeah.
can my followers, even in other countries, how can you inspire them to do something that matters in their community?
Just get outside and be kind to each other. Figure out the area, the thing that's bothering you, find a solution for it. You don't even have to have any money initially. Just go have 4 or 5 people over and talk about the solution. Treat guys to if they drink tea, coffee, beer, wine, whatever, treat guys to a bottle of wine. Treat ladies to a bottle of, a couple bottles of beer, wherever anybody lands.
And ask, what can we
just
do about
ask
it
and
as a
talk
community?
about it, and just start coming up with solutions and doing it. When you start doing that, and then you start saying, hey guys, use your social media presence and say, hey, we want to do this thing that solves this problem in our 10-block radius. We could use 10 people to maybe donate $100. You'll be surprised. We've raised and given away over $600,000 to keep all of these classes free to all.
Wow.
Yeah, so just get out there, be kind to each other, communicate, and just do it. I know the initial impetus to say, well, how do I start? You start by just starting.
Well, it's like a business. We've been talking about these businesses, but yeah, I've been doing this 25 years, writing books and publishing, speaking, but you got to start somewhere.
Yep.
You got to go to your local club, have that speech, and
Yep.
be nervous, and then oh no.
Yep.
So your links are Black Guns Matter?
No, the links are, if anyone wants to support and see what we're about, givesendgo.com/solutionary. That's for all of the classes.
Send Go.
Yeah.
GIV. Givesendgo.com.
Givesendgo.com/solutionary, and they can catch all of the information, including that link. at solutionaryuniversity.org.
Maj Toure.
Boom.